Okay, last class we ended chapter number 10, right? Today we have to start from chapter number 11, that is respiration and gas exchange. We were done with diseases and immunity. We are starting off with respiration and gas exchange. All right. Chapter number 11. Respiration and gas exchange. Okay. Right. So, firstly, there's a very clear difference between respiration and breathing, which is gas exchange. Okay. Respiration is breakdown of your nutrient molecules to release energy, and gas exchange is simple breathing in and breathing out, ventilation, exchange of gases. Right, that is simple. The simple mechanism that is breathing or gas exchange. Okay. Now, if I first talk about respiration, every living cell requires energy. Right, and that energy is required for, let's say, contraction of muscle, cell division, active transport, growth, reproduction, homeostasis, protein synthesis, transmission of impulses. Right. So energy is required for all different types of activities that are taking place in the human body that are required to run the body. Okay, it may be of your plant, animal, human, whatsoever. Now we have different types of respiration. So firstly, we'll be talking about your aerobic respiration. So in aerobic respiration, cells release energy from glucose by combining it with oxygen, and it takes place in the mitochondria. Okay, and what is the equation for it? Okay, just the definition is the equation: glucose plus oxygen gives carbon dioxide and water. This is the word equation. You will also need to know the symbolic equation. C6 is basically the opposite of photosynthesis. Alright. Then we have second type of respiration, that is your anaerobic respiration. Alright. So it is possible to release energy from glucose without using oxygen. Okay. But again, it is not as efficient process as aerobic respiration is. Again, not much energy is released from per glucose molecule. Okay, so it is not as efficient as aerobic respiration. Not as efficient as aerobic respiration. All right. And it takes place in the cytoplasm of the cell. In the cytoplasm of the cell. Yeast usually, respires anaerobically. Yeast is a single cell fungus, so it often respires anaerobically as it breaks down glucose to alcohol. The equation is glucose broken down to alcohol and carbon dioxide. Sorry. C2H5OH plus carbon dioxide. Alright. Some body cells also respire anaerobically, at the times, for example, when exercise is done. Okay, so some body cells also resort to anaerobic respiration during exercise. Okay, so during this time, lungs and heart cannot supply enough oxygen to the muscles as quickly as they're using it. So muscle cells release some energy from glucose without using oxygen. In absence of oxygen. The equation is glucose is broken down into lactic acid. Is this where any questions, anyone? This is a good table on aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Okay, both of them are breaking down glucose. One is using oxygen, the other is not using oxygen. In this, no alcohol, lactic acid is made. In that, alcohol is made in yeast and plants, lactic acid in animals. Large amount of energy is released in aerobic, smaller amount of energy is released in anaerobic. In aerobic, carbon dioxide is made. In anaerobic, only in yeast and plants, carbon dioxide is made. In animals, only lactic acid is made. Clear? Any questions? Is respiration clear?
Miss,
Yeah.
Yes, Zoya.
during photosynthesis of plants, do we call that as respiration or breathing?
In plants.
Yes.
See, one process is photosynthesis, the other is respiration. Photosynthesis is when glucose is made, and respiration is when glucose is broken down.
Okay. Yeah,
If
thank
it's
you.
broken down in the presence of oxygen, it is aerobic. It's broken down in the absence of oxygen, then it's anaerobic and it makes alcohol. Right?
Plants can do it anaerobically as well.
Yeah. See, we say it's alcohol in yeast and plants. But it's very rare because, that is very, very rare conditions because it's not like we don't have oxygen at all. Right? It's a very rare conditions in plants. But yes, there have been cases. Okay?
Okay, miss.
All right. Anyone has any questions? All clear, everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now let's talk about gas exchange in humans. Plants can, Zoya, plants can do it anaerobically only when humans keep it in such conditions that we remove all the oxygen. Otherwise, normal conditions you cannot remove oxygen from the air, right? So it's very rare. Obviously, does not happen naturally. We need to do it experimentally. Okay, like in laboratories and all. Okay,
Okay.
gas exchange in humans. So, exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen across a respiratory surface depends on diffusion of two gases, carbon dioxide and oxygen. Very important, right? Because if those gases are not diffusing, what exchange of what will happen, right? And you know that diffusion, we have talked about this earlier as well. It's the movement of particles or molecules from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration down the concentration gradient without using energy, right? So, is diffusion an active process or a passive process?
Active.
Diffusion is active. Active means it requires energy.
Never mind.
Passive, okay? So, clear? Diffusion is a passive process. Why? Because it does not require energy.
Okay.
The kinetic energy is all of the particles themselves, okay? Because of the random motion of particles. They move from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. Okay, everyone, please remember diffusion is a passive process. Any process that does not require energy is a passive process. Any process that requires energy is an active process. Now let's talk about conditions under which diffusion occurs more rapidly. So obviously we need to have rapid diffusion for gas exchange, right? So conditions under which diffusion occurs more rapidly. Firstly, I have large surface area is exposed to the gas. Okay, so large surface area must be exposed to the gas. Okay, obviously because millions of alveoli in the lung provide a very large surface area for gas exchange, right? So this is the reason of having these many alveoli. Okay, because we need to provide a large surface area for the gas exchange to take place efficiently. Then second is diffusion distance needs to be small. Okay, so small diffusion distance. Obviously, there is a two cell layer that separates the air in the alveoli from the blood in the capillaries. Okay. For example, if this is your capillary, and let's say this is your terminal bronchiole, okay, where your bronchioles basically terminate. Okay, so for example, this is your alveoli. With the folding to increase surface area. Okay, it is bigger obviously, but I don't have space. Okay, anyways, I hope this makes sense. Okay, now see across this point over here, let's say you have your red blood cells biconcave in shape. Okay, this is the alveolar sac. Okay, this is your RBC capillary, alveolar sac, terminal bronchiole, terminal bronchiole. One second. Alright, so this is your, let's say this is how it is, okay? So from here, this side, let's say oxygen is coming, but this is blood obviously, okay? This side oxygen is coming into the alveolar sac, sorry, from the alveolar sac into the blood, obviously it will be losing oxygen, and then carbon dioxide will be coming from the capillary because, and it will be going into the alveolar sac so that it can be removed from the blood. Is this clear?
Miss, can you repeat?
Yes. See, I am saying when you breathe in, right, oxygen, as soon as it reaches the alveolar sac, it will then leave the alveolar sac and enter the capillary so that it can reach to all parts of your body, right? And at the same time, carbon dioxide will be coming from the capillary because that is from the deoxygenated blood, and that will be entering the alveolar so that it can be removed from the body. This is why we are saying it, this capillary is one cell thick so that it reduces the diffusion distance the gases have to travel. It's just directly from the blood to the alveoli, alveoli to blood directly. Diffusion distance is very small.
Okay.
Clear? Third, thin epithelium again. Thin epithelium, obviously, it comes under the same category of one cell thick and all. All right. Okay. After that, good blood supply, large difference in concentration gradient. Third is good blood supply. Okay. So obviously, alveoli are surrounded by a network of blood capillaries. If I draw it over here, it will get very mixed up. But they are surrounded by a network of blood capillaries. Okay, this is one capillary that I have drawn here. Okay, there are multiple capillaries like this. Okay, and the continuous removal of oxygen by the blood in the capillary lining causes the alveoli to keep the concentration low. Okay, so that will cause a steep concentration gradient to be maintained. That will again favor the rapid diffusion of your oxygen. Fourth is again large difference in concentration gradient. Right, so we see that there's a large difference in the concentration of the 2 points, which are alveoli and capillaries, obviously. Right, because continuously alveoli is losing oxygen and gaining carbon dioxide. So obviously, when it's continuously losing oxygen, so obviously there'll be less oxygen from in alveoli. Okay, so it will lose more and more oxygen. Okay, and it will, when your blood has more carbon dioxide, it will lose more and more carbon dioxide and give it to the alveoli. Okay, when you breathe in, basically, normal condition, alveoli is rich in oxygen, whereas blood is deficient in oxygen. So alveoli is deficient in carbon dioxide, blood is deficient in blood is rich in carbon dioxide. This is why rapid and immediate exchange of gases takes place. Is this clear? When you breathe in, alveoli is rich in oxygen, whereas blood is deficient in oxygen. This one clear? And with reference to carbon dioxide, alveoli is deficient in carbon dioxide and blood is rich in carbon dioxide. Is this making sense?
Yes.
See, when you're breathing in, obviously, you're taking in air, right? And that contains oxygen. And at the same time, you will have deoxygenated blood running through at this point, right? Because it has collected blood from all over the body that is deficient in oxygen and rich in carbon dioxide. So now capillary will lose the carbon dioxide and gain oxygen. So when we breathe in, alveoli is rich in oxygen, whereas your blood is deficient in oxygen because it has a lot of carbon dioxide. On the other hand, since you just breathe in, your alveoli will be deficient in carbon dioxide, but the blood will be rich in carbon dioxide. Is this clear, everyone?
Yes, yes.
Rest of you, Saad, Ayla, Ahmed, Ibrahim,
Clear.
Ahmed, Ayla, Ibrahim, Ayla, and Ibrahim. Clear? Okay, Ibrahim.
Yeah, yes.
All right, great. So ventilation is what simple breathing in and breathing out. The exchange of gases. One second, let me just reshare the screen. Basically, one second, let me just reshare this. What was I saying? Why did one node crash? One second. Anyways, okay, fine, it opened. Great. Right. So I was saying ventilation is the process of simple breathing in and breathing out. Simple. Ventilation, process of inhalation and exhalation. Inhalation and exhalation. Okay. And this process basically helps to maintain a steep diffusion gradient between the air and the air passage and the alveolar air. Between the air at the air passage and the alveolar air. Alright, I hope everyone's clear. Please note this down and then we're gonna talk about your lung structure quickly.
Yes, can you explain the last sentence you wrote?
Yes, this steep diffusion gradient one.
Yeah.
Right. So, like we said, last point that there needs to be a large difference between the concentration gradient, right? So, we are saying that this constant breathing in and breathing out is basically helping to maintain that steep concentration gradient so that there's easy, rapid, and quick rate of diffusion, quick exchange of gases. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Please scroll up.
Okay, yes. Sorry. Forgot. Okay, here. Can I scroll down?
Can you show the last part of anaerobic respiration?
Last word? Last point?
Yes.
Okay, please note this down as well, and then I'm gonna scroll down. Alright, is everyone done?
I'm done.
Okay, let's move on. Alright, I hope there are no further questions. Okay. Uh, let's discuss now your lung structure. Okay. Okay. Look, this is your lung structure. At the top, you have your epiglottis. It's not labeled. And this is supposed to be your larynx. Okay. Trachea, windpipe, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli, right lobe, left lobe, and this is your magnification of your alveoli. Okay. So lungs are joined at the back of the mouth by trachea, that is a windpipe. You guys know that. Okay. And trachea divided into two small tubes that are called bronchi. Bronchi enter the lungs and further divide into bronchioles. You can see them. And bronchioles basically end into big, tiny, I guess a thin walled pouch that is called alveoli. Clear? Okay. Firstly, we have epiglottis. Okay. This is present at the top of the trachea. And stops food and drink from entering the air passage while we eat. From entering the air passage. Then I have rib cage. Rib cage, very important, protects the lungs and heart, vital organs. Moves to ventilate the lungs. It moves to ventilate the lungs. Epithelium. So alveoli have thin elastic walls formed from a single layer of epithelium. Again, that is to reduce diffusion distance. Have thin elastic walls. Formed from a single layer of epithelium. Okay. So ventilation, I've told you earlier, it refers to the movement of air into and out of lungs and includes the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, which takes place between the air and the blood vessels in the lungs. Okay. Oxygen will combine with hemoglobin to form oxyhemoglobin. Okay. All right. And they form oxyhemoglobin. Oxygen combines with oxygen. Combines with oxygen. Hemoglobin. Combines with hemoglobin to form oxyhemoglobin. To form oxyhemoglobin. All right. Okay. All right. And carbon dioxide in the plasma. Carbon dioxide in the plasma is released when hydrogen carbonate, that is, it's hydrogen carbonate ions HCO3 negative, ions HCO3 negative break down to form carbon dioxide and water. Now we have a discussion of ventilation of lungs. Okay, so lungs basically have no muscle fiber and they expand and contract by the movement of ribs and diaphragm. So firstly, what is diaphragm? And then we'll talk about inhalation and exhalation. Yes, Zoya.
Miss, for the last
Yes.
point that you stated, where did the HCO3 minus ions come from?
Hydrogen carbonate ions. This
Yeah.
is in the plasma. Okay.
So when the cells they release carbon dioxide from the body, it combines
Yeah,
with the
in the
hemoglobin
yes.
with it?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So basically, the carbon dioxide diffuses from respiring tissues. It enters the red blood cells and combines with water to form carbonic acid. That is H2CO3. Okay. Now that detail is not important, but I will tell you now. See, carbon dioxide diffuses from cells into blood. Right. Agreed. Right. Cells respired. They produce carbon dioxide that will diffuse from cells into blood. Clear?
Yes.
Carbon dioxide will enter red blood cells and they'll react with water to form carbonic acid, that is H2CO3. This H2CO3 dissociates into hydrogen plus and HCO3 negative. This is called hydrogen carbonate ions. And then these break down to form carbon dioxide and water. Is this clear now?
Okay, Miss.
Alright. Good, you asked. Everyone, is this clear? Good question. Who left? Oh, Ahmed and okay, fine. Alright, so ventilation of lungs. I was saying that they do not have any muscle fiber. They expand and contract by the movement of ribs and diaphragm. Ribs, I told you already. Diaphragm is basically a sheet of tissues that separates the thorax from the abdomen. That separates the thorax from the abdomen. Okay, now we have the main process of inhalation and exhalation. Okay. Inhalation and exhalation. Right, let me just copy it down 1 second. One second. Alright, so now while I'll be explaining, please try breathing in, breathing out so that you can relate to it. So as the air moves inside, your pressure of the lungs decreases, and you guys know that pressure and volume are inversely proportional. So when pressure will decrease, the volume will increase. Diaphragm contracts and becomes flat. Your external intercostal muscles contract, and they're not here. Okay, I'll show it to you later. External intercostal muscles contract, internal intercostal muscles relax. Rib cage moves outwards and upwards. Now try breathing in while I explain it again. Pressure of lungs decreases. Obviously, when you're breathing in, pressure will decrease, volume will increase because they will expand when you're breathing in. Volume increases, pressure decreases. Diaphragm contracts and becomes flat. External intercostal muscles contract, internal intercostal muscles will relax. Rib cage moves outwards and upwards. Can you relate with this? Is this clear?
Yes, miss.
Okay. Opposite of this will happen when you are breathing out. Now, obviously, when you're breathing out, air will leave the lungs, so your volume will decrease. If your volume decreases, your pressure increases because pressure and volume are inversely related. Diaphragm relaxes and becomes dome shaped, that is the normal shape. External intercostal muscles will relax, internal intercostal muscles will contract, rib cage will move inwards and downwards. Clear?
What is the purpose of external and internal intercostal muscles?
See, like I told you, lungs do not have any muscle fiber. All right. So these rib cage and your diaphragm and these muscles help to contract and relax. That is what allows the movement of your lungs. Okay. Lungs do not have anything to contract. They don't have muscle fibers. Okay. So these are the ones that is helping your lungs to contract and relax. Okay, so are you clear?
Clear.
Anyone else any questions? All of you clear? Ibrahim, Ayla, Joy clear?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now, see, when you breathe in and breathe out, obviously, don't you think there'll be some friction as well? Right? Because your lungs will collide with the wall of your thorax. Right? So, for that, your lungs basically are surrounded by a pleural membrane. Okay, it's not shown in this diagram. Let me copy another diagram. Okay. So, they basically secrete a pleural fluid. Okay, that is in your pleural cavity. That basically helps to reduce the friction when you are breathing in and breathing out. Let me show you so that you can relate. Pleural membrane, pleural fluid, and pleural cavity. Let me find a good diagram so that I can show it to you. Okay, this feels okay, simple enough, and not this. It's pleural effusion. This is a condition. Let's check it. This is not save my exams. I hope it's good. Yes, anyone any questions? Okay, yes, look at this. This cavity outside is your pleural cavity. See, this is the pleural membrane outside the lungs. Okay, you see this black outline. Okay, obviously you cannot see it, but it's a membrane outside the lungs. Okay, and this place that I'm highlighting with yellow, this is a pleural fluid that is released in the pleural cavity. Okay, cavity is basically between two membranes, right? So it releases the fluid in this membrane. So this, when the lungs expand, obviously when they will expand and let's say touch the walls, there'll be no friction. Okay, just like you have synovial fluid in your joints that prevent friction. Okay, again, the purpose of this is to prevent friction. Is this clear? The function of pleural membrane and pleural fluid. Anyone any questions? Yes, questions please. Pleural membrane, okay, is the membrane surrounding the lung. Okay, there is pleural fluid in the pleural cavity that prevents friction between the lungs and the inside of the thorax when you're breathing in and breathing out. Clear?
Clear.
Rest of you clear? Yes or no? Please say yes or no.
Yes, miss.
Ayla, Ibrahim, clear?
Yes.
All right. Last thing is protection of gas exchange system, and then we're done with the chapter. So protection against pathogens. And what are pathogens? Pathogens are disease-causing organisms. You know that. And you have talked about them in the previous chapter as well. So pathogens basically cause diseases. They are disease-causing organisms. And for protection, you have two types of cells. You have goblet cells and ciliated cells. Right. What is the function of goblet cells? Yes. Anyone can answer. Otherwise, I will take on my own.
They secrete mucus.
Very good. Okay, so they secrete sticky mucus and forms a thin layer and traps the pathogen and small particles, preventing them from entering the alveoli. And where are they present? They are found in the epithelial lining of the trachea, bronchi, and bronchioles. Found in the epithelial lining of trachea, bronchi, and bronchioles. Okay. Yes, function of ciliated cells. Someone else now this time. Ciliated cells. Yes, function of ciliated cells. Yes, Sad.
Ciliated cells form
Hmm.
cilia, which are here in the trachea, and they help to keep the pathogens out.
Okay, and how do they keep the pathogens out? By there's a motion, sweeping motion, right? That sweep
Yes.
away the mucus. Okay, upwards and away from trachea. Good. Okay, so it is a continuous flicking motion that sweeps away mucus, which is secreted by goblet cells upwards and away from trachea. And yes, you are right. They are found in the epithelial lining of respiratory tract. Very good, both of you. Found in the epithelial lining of respiratory tract. But is everyone clear? Okay, a very small topic that I wanted to discuss was connection between physical activity and depth of breathing. right? So we have talked about this earlier as well, right? So when rate of exercise increases, depth of breathing also increases. Everyone has encountered this in day-to-day life. So during exercise, your limbs need to move faster, and for that, oxygen is needed, obviously, because you're moving, right? The first thing we discussed was need for energy, right? Why do we need respiration? So aerobic respiration and skeletal muscle increases. Okay. And since cells are respiring more, they would also produce more carbon dioxide. And when brain will detect this buildup of carbon dioxide and it's increasing concentration in blood, that will stimulate your breathing mechanism to breathe more and more faster. Okay, so your rate of exhalation also increases, and your heavy breathing continues even few minutes even after the exercise has stopped. Why is that? To remove all the excess carbon dioxide from the blood so that it does not build up and become toxic. Is this clear? Anyone, any questions from anything? Yes. Anyone, any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So, if these goblet and ciliated cells are present in the respiratory tract, how is it present also in the stomach lining and the esophagus?
So they can be in multiple places. It's not an only place formed at only one point.
Okay, miss.
Okay, they can be found at more than one site. There's no issue. Okay. Yes. Anyone has any questions? Please ask questions. It will make your concepts clear. Yes. Make this a bit small. It's too huge. Yes. Questions. Saad, Ibrahim, and Ida. Anyone? Any questions?
Everything clear.
No.
Okay. All right. Ida, all got all clear. Okay. Let me just fix this, and I'll give you zoom out to write down. All right. Note this down from where? From here, I think. Okay. Please note this down. Yes, Zoya.
Yeah, I have one more question to ask.
Sure, sure.
So, basically, when we're exercising a lot,
Hmm.
so we start breathing faster. This is the
Obviously.
oxygen depth that you were talking about, right?
Oxygen debt is when your cells do not get enough oxygen and they start to respire anaerobically. Okay, when they resort to anaerobic respiration and produce lactic acid. See, oxygen debt means lack of oxygen, that because of which your muscles start to respire anaerobically. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Anything else?
No, I just wanted to clear that.
All right, great. Good. Everyone should ask questions, all right, because that will make your concept more and more clear. Okay, can I scroll down? Here. Tomorrow, inshallah, we start with chapter 12. Okay. Chapter 12 is your coordination and response. It's a long chapter. Okay. Let's see how much we can cover tomorrow, inshallah. All right, done?
Done.
Okay, everyone's done? Ayla, Ibrahim, Zoya done?
Just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, I'm done now.
All right, great. Ibrahim done, Ayla done, Claire. I hope everyone's clear and no more questions. So that's all for today. Tomorrow, inshallah, we're going to start off with chapter number 12, coordination and response. All right. See you tomorrow, inshallah. Then.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah
Allah
Hafiz.
Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.